Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
And for those of you that don't recognize me, my name's Jim, and I'm the vicar here, and I've been around for 4 days. For those of you who are new, thank you for being here today. Today is Good Shepherd Sunday. And we have, in the Episcopal Church here in the Diocese of Indianapolis, we have the Chapel of the Good Shepherd in West Lafayette. And typically in the churches who are named after one of the saints that we celebrate a Saint's Day, and if it falls on a Sunday, Good Shepherd's having a big party today. Well, so is Good Samaritan. We're having a big party today too. But I think, we all want and need a good shepherd to lead us. The Catholic Church has just elected its first American Pope. I believe that along with Pope Francis, Pope Leo will be a very good shepherd for the Catholic Church. And the only relationship we have with them is a long time ago we came from Rome. But it's important with the number of people that the Catholic Church has in attendance that they have someone like Pope Leo. And I'll just say this, some of the other choices might have been very detrimental to our Christian community. So I, for one, am very thankful. Yesterday, I was invited to go to the reunification meeting. Our two dioceses, we have a diocese of Northern Indiana and a diocese of Indianapolis. And they are discerning whether it makes sense for the two dioceses to merge together. So we would still have two bishops, but we'd be a lot stronger in numbers, and there's a lot of reasons to do it. There's also a lot of reasons not to do it. But one of the gentlemen from the standing committee from the Diocese of Northern Indiana, he told this story, and I asked him if I could tell it today. If you came from a long distance, the diocese made you could stay at a hotel in Kokomo, Indiana, near St. Andrews, where the meeting took place from 10 to 4. And he was having breakfast. He was a veteran. And he was having breakfast in the restaurant at the hotel. And he was wearing a veteran's cap. And it happened to be a Vietnam veteran's cap. And a lady came over who was an elderly lady and laid money on the table and said, "I'm buying your breakfast today. Thanks for your service." Now, those of us, I'm, of course, am not old enough to remember this, but those that are old enough to remember, this Vietnam vet told the story that when they came back from Vietnam, they were told not to wear their uniforms. They were not welcome in their own country, the country that they had fought for. And he said, even without the uniforms, we still were spat upon. And here, years later, this woman was acknowledging his service. So she had to be a follower of the Good Shepherd. This gospel that we read today actually is the same gospel we read all 3 years in our liturgical calendar. We just read different parts of it. So we hear the Good Shepherd story each year. And this imagery of the Good Shepherd, Jesus being the Good Shepherd, is phenomenal, and it fits. In the time of Jesus, people understood the role that the shepherd played and the role that the sheep played. The image of the shepherd was part of the culture. Not so much here now with us. But if you remember, Abraham, the father of the nation, was a keeper of great flocks. Moses was tending the flocks of his father-in-law Jethro when God called him into extraordinary service. And David, you will recall, was a shepherd boy called in from the fields to be the king of Israel. So in a real sense, this story is about a call story. And that each of us have to listen for the voice of the shepherd in our lives. And for some of us, it takes a long time to hear that voice. Today marks the 33rd anniversary of a heart attack that I had. I was 31 years old. I was training for the mini marathon. I was on the 9th mile of a 10-mile run. And I just didn't feel very well. And I thought I was in pretty good shape. I was much skinnier and more buff than I am today. Of course, I can't do a 20-minute mile now, but I was at an 8-minute mile pace and thought I was in really good shape. And as it turned out, I almost died. But it was a wake-up call for me. It was as if God had taken a big 2x4 and boom. So the key thing I learned from that is it's not what happens to us on the outside. It's how we deal with it on the inside. And thank goodness for the church support that I had, the family support that I had. You got to remember, it was Mother's Day. And I wrecked Mother's Day for at least 4 moms that day. And maybe others, I don't know. But word went out that a 31-year-old runner had had a heart attack at St. Vincent's Hospital. And every church in Zionsville was praying for me. And I didn't find that out till later. But you can imagine the devastation of a 31-year-old. Is life over here? What's going on? So some things had to change, and they did. And I became, with the help of my neighbors and with the help of St. Francis and my church, I was able to, I was devastated. I couldn't work for 3 months. And we had a big mortgage, 2 car payments, and 2 young daughters. But through the support of our community and my parents and our families, we were able to overcome this. And I think our faith had a lot to do with it as well. And the church was immensely important to us. And moving forward, we became wonderful parishioners. They asked me at the Commission on Ministry when they're interviewing candidates for holy orders, they said, "Why would we ordain you? You're a wonderful layperson. We love what you're doing." But it's understanding that it's how we deal with the things that are happening externally, internally, that make the difference, and who we call on to help us. So no matter what kind of trouble we are in, what kind of things are going on in our world, we have some control through our faith and through our trust in the Good Shepherd. So this passage it takes place during the Festival of Dedication, or Hanukkah, for example. And the community is very excited about the fact that, the temple had been desecrated and defiled by pagan rule, and now it was being rebuilt. There was hope. And they were using that internal thing that I'm talking about. And they were hoping that the ideals of Judaism would be reinstigated and that the pagan rule was over and that the Messianic age would be ushered in. And in the story, the question becomes Jesus as the shepherd and someone who is one with God. Listen to the Good Shepherd tones that are in the service today. So you'll hear them. We said Psalm 23, which is also known as the Good Shepherd Song. And scholarship believes that, the divine imagery from this Old Testament, that Christ came in to bridge the gap between the Old and the New, the Hebrew Scriptures, and the Gospels. So in other words, Jesus' embrace of us is stronger than any other power in the world, no matter where we go or what we come up against. And I know everyone is fighting a struggle that we may know nothing about. And that's why we come here, to hold each other up in prayer. Prayer gives us the endurance that we need. It helps us. It took me a while to hear God's call, but everyone is called to help another fellow traveler on this journey that we're on. I love the part where it says the Good Shepherd knows his sheep. And there's a story about Sir George Adams Smith when he was in the Holy Land. He saw all these flocks of sheep huddled around the watering hole, and they all looked alike to him, and it was just simply a mass of white wool. And he wondered how the shepherds would ever be able to separate all these flocks of sheep. But then each shepherd gave his own unique call. and in an orderly fashion the sheep divided. Perhaps that's what the Good Shepherd meant when he said, I know my sheep and my sheep know me. We wear name badges for a very important reason here at Good Samaritan. And we do that because Jesus calls us by name, and we want to call each other by name. Our names are very, very important. And I think we need to do more of that. Think about one of my favorite teachers was a teacher that knew everyone in class by name. It showed that they cared. They called us by name. We weren't just a number. How many times have you felt like a number? You know, we're a number to the federal government. Everybody's got a Social Security number. When I went to IU, if you didn't know your Social Security number, you couldn't do anything. Everybody's got a number, a tax ID number. I mean, it's all about numbers. I'd like to make it all about names. Even when I've had the honor of being a chaplain at our church camp, Waycross, I discovered that our kids didn't know each other's names. They only knew the people that were right in the cabins or the tents right there with them. They only knew a few people. So we ended up playing games so that everybody knew each other's names. I've been at a church, not this one, where someone proudly said to me that I've been here 47 years. And I said, great. Who's that person over there? I don't know their name. I don't know. Really? And I know we only see each other maybe once a week, but it's important the name badges are there so that we can call each other by name. Jesus calls each of us by name. And I think we need to make a point of doing that. And in a real sense, I find it immensely comforting that the great creator of the entire cosmos knows us by name, knows me by name, knows you by name. My only fear is that I won't recognize his voice when he calls me. When he has brought out all on his own, you know, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. That's what we're to do. We are to be the followers of the Good Shepherd. So we have to be tuned in to hear him. I know that in my own life I've not always recognized his voice. I've been too preoccupied maybe with myself, maybe a little too self-centered, and I've been too busy to listen, too much going on to hear what's going on. But it's important for us to take time to listen to the direction that we might be told to go. It's important for all of us to hear the call of the Good Shepherd. And that's why I love this line, I know my sheep and my sheep know me. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is knowing that the Good Shepherd is greater than any trouble we might be facing, and our devotion to God can give us strength to endure. And that's the key to our endurance, our strength as followers of the Good Shepherd. We may not be able to still the storms of the life we are leading around us, the storms that are outside us, but we can, with a strong captain at the helm of our ship, with a shepherd to lead us, his voice to heed and to follow, we can calm the storms within us in here. For it's not what happens to us that matters as much as what happens in us. That is why Jesus says today, I know my own and my own know me. The sheep hear my voice and follow me. In the midst of the storms of life, let us listen to the gentle voice of Jesus saying, peace, be still, for God is great.